can move on to the next.
So it's with great pleasure I'd like to introduce you to two of our customers. So from Playrix, we have Natalie Kuzmina, who's head of player support at Playrix. Playrix is the largest gaming company in Russia and the CIS countries, and they're in the top 5 most successful mobile publishers in the world. Founded around 2004, their games include Township, Fishdom, Gardenscapes, Homescapes, and Wildscapes, and they have more than 30 million people playing them daily. Joining Natalie is Matthew. So Matthew Natman is from Hutch Games, and he's head of customer support there. Hutch Games were founded in 2011 and are entirely focused on making the best action-packed, visually stunning racing games that can be played and enjoyed by anyone, anywhere on mobile. Their titles include Rebel Racing and Formula One Manager. Matt has 20 years of manager experience in the managing customer support teams in various media and gaming companies, and has been head of support at Hutch for 4 years. So what I'd like to do now is just hand over to Natalie and to Matt to give them a little bit more insight into themselves and to their companies. So Natalie, tell us a little bit more about yourself and Playrix.
Certainly. Thank you, John. Thanks for the introduction, and hello to everyone. I must say I'm glad to see that there is so many other Russians in this meeting joining us today. So obviously English is not my first language. I'm a bit nervous because this is the first sort of public event for me speaking in English, and if I make a lot of mistakes, just bear with me. As was said before about Playrix, yes, this is one of the biggest and probably the biggest gaming company in Russia and CIS region. And the games that we are developing, that we continue to develop, at the very top of crossing a list in iOS store and Google Play Store. I have been with Playrix for more than 4 years now. I started as an agent, as a customer support representative, and I slowly have risen through the ranks to become a head of support that I am at the moment. I'm relatively new to this position. I only have been the head of support for a year and a half, but this has been a very interesting journey for me. And a huge portion of that journey was in peer with the Helpshift. So I'm really glad to be here today to be talking about it in more details and to be sharing my experience with how I experienced it and what I went through with Helpshift with all of you guys.
Thank you. And Matt?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invite. Cheers, John. So I'm head of customer support at Hutch Games. I've been there since 2016. Hutch was founded in about 2011. When I joined, it was mostly just casual sort of racing games like hill climb games and a few licensed properties like Hot Wheels. And then we've kind of moved into a live ops area now with F1 Manager, Top Drives, and Rebel Racing. So it's very event focused. So there's a lot of focus on our VIP players. Yeah, it's we've been with Helpshift since 2014. I think we were a company of about 30 people back then. So now we're up to about 90. So we've seen a hell of a lot of growth, and Helpshift's been a massive help with that growth as well. So we're currently about 12 million monthly active users, and that's grown. I can't remember what it was to start with, but it's been exponential.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the introduction. So what I'd like to do is ask a few questions, and if you can share your answers with the teams, with the people on the event, that'd be great. So can you tell us what's, I guess, number one top of mind for you in terms of customer care, what your customer care philosophy is, and what's crucial for you in terms of customer support, both at Playrix and Hutch? So I'll hand it over to Natalie first.
Yeah, of course. I would say for us, the most important thing would probably be player experience. Player experience always comes first. But lately, during this COVID situation and during a lot of other projects that are coming out from our company, we also are thinking about scaling more and more, and scaling is becoming more essential and more urgent for us. So gaming market is fiercely competitive, as you might know, and this means that to be able to have a higher ground there, you really need to put your players' needs first. And especially since we are offering free-to-play games, and this means that for players, it's very easy to get those games, but it's also very easy to uninstall them if they feel that we do not follow their expectations, that we do not give them what they need. So this means that we have to work very hard to give them what they really need, to give them the perfect customer care and perfect player experience. And this is mostly what we think about. This is mostly what we're trying to do. And since we have a lot of players to take care of, we also need to think about scaling, because we can't really have, you know, millions of agents all around the world to work with millions of players that are playing our games daily. So this is where automation comes in play. And this is where we need to think strategically about our scaling potential.
Thank you, Natalie. Matt?
Hi, yeah, just to mirror what Natalie said, it's like every single player matters, really. We create free-to-play games with millions of players, but that doesn't mean we just care only about our spenders. We aim to reply to every single person who contacts us. If that's a problem, a question, or just some feedback, we love hearing from them, basically, and Helpshift helps us do that. We make a point of not only alerting the team to issues encountered, Helpshift has helped us close the loop around providing valuable feedback to the development teams. So both positive and negative stuff. And it's really helped us sort of summarize in weekly meetings based around sort of community and customer support, and help sort of drive just not just bug resolutions, but sort of new feature development. So it's really, really helpful.
Cool, thank you. And Natalie, you touched a little bit on COVID-19 and scale, but how has that changed the way that you're supporting your players? How were you doing things before? How are you doing them now? And how has it affected your business?
Well, most importantly, that we came prepared in terms of working from home to this situation, because almost all of our agents and team leaders, and me included, we have been working from home long before the start of the pandemic. Playrix has always been an advocate for this way of work. So honestly, this just proves to me that we are on the right track with it. And it really helped that we didn't have to build any additional, infrastructure. We didn't have to use some extra resources to help our agents and to help our teams to move to this working from home experience. So that was an easy part. What we didn't anticipate was the drastic increase in numbers of tickets that we started to receive in March, April, and still receiving at the moment. To me, it feels that it's really good to know that we are providing, providing the players with the product that they are highly interested in. So this gives them some joy and some distraction in this really trying time. And this is good because we didn't have to spend any additional resources of, acquiring this new audience. But this is also putting a strain on our operations because, the numbers of tickets have doubled or tripled for some of our games. And we had to do something quickly to be able to handle this much. And once again, here, the automations really helped us. The bots we were able to build very quickly to help us handle this increasing amounts of tickets. And this would probably was the most important step in us in handling this increased workload.
Thank you. And Matt, same question to you. How's COVID changed the way that you're working?
It's been fun, very interesting times. Basically, it's a nice problem to have, I suppose, but business-wise, we've had about a 20% increase in usage of our games. Around about the time, I think it was in March, end of March, we released 2 updates to 2 of our titles, and we had massive issues in both of them. and that caused a huge, enormous spike. But yeah, it's Helpshift has helped us sort of stay connected to our players. It's been seamless, which has been great. In terms of pre-lockdown, we could work from home 2 days a week anyway, but we've kind of moved full working from home now, so it's still hard in places, a bit like herding cats sometimes, but yeah, it's been okay. We've had some great message support from our players, but without the right infrastructure already in place, it would have been challenging to maintain our relationship that we've got with our players.
Cool, thank you. And so back to Natalie. How is your support organisation organised? You know, the number of agents, where they're located. I know you said they're all remote. Are they all Playrix personnel, or do you outsource any? And how many languages do you support? Because I know gaming is a multinational industry.
Well, first of all of our teams, all of our agents and support team leaders are in-house, so we don't outsource any part of our workload to anyone else. We actually at some point used to do that, or we used to work with an outsourced company for more than a year. But funny story, then we started working with automations and we introduced the bots to all our players. And this is where we were able to cut the costs with an outsourced company and work solely with bots and solely with our own in-house teams. Each of our games has its own dedicated support team, which is relatively small to what you might be thinking, supporting millions and millions of players. The size of the team really depends on the size of the daily active player base that we have for this. So the sizes might differ. For some of the games, we have smaller teams, which would be 5 to 6 people. And some other games, it can be twice, 2 or 3 times as many. And yeah, of course, our games are translated in many languages, up to 20, I think, with Township. So naturally, we want to provide the same language support for those players who are engaged with our product. So we have our own native speakers in many languages that are more popular in Europe, for example, like Spanish, German, French, Portuguese, Russian, obviously. English, and some other languages as well, such as Chinese, Japanese. I might be missing some, but that would be in sum around 10 to 12 languages in total. And with a lot of players, with a lot of agents working from different countries, from different parts of the continents, even different parts of the world, it helps us to stay on top in terms of 24/7 player support. But with teams with relatively small, working round the clock still can be challenging for us. So with automations, which help us to reduce significantly the time to first response, we can focus more on the players that have more complicated or complex issues to provide them with more personalized support, and to focus more on the players that need our immediate attention when they have some technical issues with the game, when they can't access the game, or when they have something related to payment issues or something else.
Thank you, Natalie. Matt, same to you. And I guess with a title like Formula One manager, you've got many players around the world, because Formula One is a huge brand.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think in terms of the game teams and how we're organised, we have one game manager who's basically embedded with the development team and acts as the liaison between the customer support and the dev team. Then underneath that, we have 3 contracted specialists, and we're looking at building out this sort of contracted team. These guys are like bilingual, and they're based around the world and work remotely. And so they can basically do everything that we can do in the office in terms of tools wise, except sort of talk to the team on a daily basis. So, they're really helpful with handling sort of VIP queries and everything like that. And then we also have work with an outsourcer in Poland, and I think there's about 13 guys there at the moment. So internally, we don't cover all the European languages, so we kind of fill in the gap with outsourcers. But we cover the main European languages, so English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, and Portuguese. We also have an internal Chinese speaker, on the lookout for Japanese at the moment. But yeah, we haven't really pushed into those territories yet in terms of like UA or user acquisition. So when we do that, we'll look into building that side of the team as well. Yeah, I think our games are translated into 14 different languages. F1, I think 16 to cover like Finland and Hungary as well. So yeah, and then all our FAQs and everything are translated into every language that those games support.
Good, thank you. So Natalie, back to you. What did support look like before Helpshift, and what issues were you facing with your teams before the Helpship platform, and what pain points did you have?
Before Helpshift, we used to work with a different CRM system with a different tool. I'm not going to name any names. Just want to say that it was more B2B driven, business to business companies, not business to gaming, business to customer. And it was a much more fragmented experience. So we used emails to support our players. And for a player, the experience was a little bit, I think, outdated, even at that point, 4 years ago. So it didn't look as fresh and as stylish as it looks nowadays. And for us, the main problem, I guess, was that we couldn't get as much information from the players as we needed, because to use this tool to send us the report, player had to send us an email. And if we wanted to receive some specific information about their gaming account or about their gameplay events, their lately gameplay events, then we had to include this information in their report. So this means that the player could see this information, that they could get something from it, they could decipher it, for example, hack the game or something. And yeah, this was one of the issues that we were facing. But also we had to sort of deflect the player from actually playing the game when they used this report system. So to send us a message, they had to exit the game, open their some sort of the mail agent and send us a report, send us a text. And then to receive a message from us, they actually had to go back and to read this email and to continue the conversation with us, which was very inconvenient for both us and the players. And this was probably the main point of of change that we needed really to improve. But also we weren't able to scale as much with this system as we can do today. And it was much more difficult to track and mark specific cases, to track the tickets, to have this tag system that we have nowadays. And of course, we didn't have any FAQ articles that we do have nowadays. And we couldn't even start thinking about using any kind of bots and automations with this specific system.
Thank you, Natalie. Nice answer. Same to you, Matt. What was the world like before Helpshift?
It kind of predates my experience at Helpshift, but you know, I sort of dig deep in the group hive mind of Hutch to find out what it was actually like. But we used a program called Red Booth to gather emails up and then treat them like tickets. It can be assigned, rejected, or resolved. I think back then we were only about 50 tickets a day, but they tried to get ahead of it by adding self-service FAQs to our games, which was basically just in the menu screen in the settings. That quickly becomes unmanageable as the ticket volume increases and as we launch additional games as well. So we had one on the future, and we wanted a scalable solution that would allow us to organise large volumes of tickets and to handle multiple agents and to be able to report on vital CS metrics like response times, issue trends, and CSAT, which we weren't monitoring before that. So yeah, having seen success with our own FAQs, we're keen to find a service that replicated that on top of the sort of incident management that we got with Helpshift, and something that would sort out all the spam emails which we were getting, which was good.
Thank you. I'll ask a couple more questions, and then I think we're getting some questions through from the audience, so we'll break them. But just to carry on the track of before, how obviously I think I know why you moved to Helpshift, and why that was. But can you tell us a little bit how you transformed your organisation and how you took that transition from your old system into the new system, and how it improved your both player and agent experience? So Natalie first.
Well, I guess it's important to mention here that we were always digital first as a gaming company. We didn't have any call centers or any other channels to engage with our player base, because even at the moment of, the creation of the first support systems that we had, we already understood that this is what the player base needs. Our players, they don't really want to have a call with an agent. They want to just to have a text, and they want us to quickly reply to their texts so as not to disrupt their player experience. So it was important for us to continue this way, working this way with the players, engaging with them through the app, through the games that they are playing. And that was the right way. But what we really were worried about is how we'd be able to scale with this new way of engaging the players. So when we moved to Helpshift, which was, it was 4 years ago when I was an agent at that point. So I remember distinctly that there was a huge, difference between those two systems that I used. So with the first one, it was more inconvenient, it was more cumbersome to use. And with the transition to Helpshift, when I opened it the first time, when I started using it, when I understood how many different functions and how many different things that they are there that I could use, it was great. It was awesome. It was really freeing. So with the help of Smart Use, for example, I could organize my workspace to be able to prioritize between tickets, or the first priority and the second priority and others. And with an in-app messaging system, it really felt more natural for the players. And me as a player, I could definitely appreciate that. It really looks more like like a messenger, for example, that everybody uses this day. So it helps to create this natural feeling of having a live conversation, having a live chat with the customer, with the player. And also we can collect some valuable information about the players this way. So all of this data that we receive about our players, it's all hidden now, so the player is not distracted by it. The player doesn't see what we see about them, and we can collect quite a lot of data from that. But also we can sort of tailor this experience to players' needs depending on the specific category that we can create for this specific player. And this gives us a lot of opportunities to, to create some differentiations between players depending on what kind of experience we want them to have. So obviously, if we're talking about our most prioritized players, the ones that are spending a lot of money on our games, we want them to have the best. We want them to have this white glove, treatment. So with this Helpshift functions that we have, we can just make it obvious that those are the players that are on top. Those are the players that you should give your attention first. And those are the players that we want to be answered immediately, that we want to have all the information that they need, and that we can have as many things as possible to help us serve them better and to help us give them the fastest solution to their problem as possible. So I guess with the messaging system that we have now, 3 most key elements of it would be giving the player the ability to self-service first, so they can read the FAQ articles before even sending a report to us. So this is the place where I guess our support is the strongest. So we don't have to engage with the player can help themselves. after that, if the player sends a report, it's really very easy for them. So they are doing this in the game. They don't have to distract from playing the game. And when they send the reply back to them, they immediately receive a notification which stays in the game, so they are always, aware that we are in conversation with them, that we are in the dialogue, and we can get back to it at any point of time, and the player can respond to us, and the conversation stays there. Even if it's finished, the player can always get back to it to read through it, to reopen the conversation. And so this means that we are always in touch and we are right there when the player needs us.
Great. Thank you, Natalie. Matt, same question to you.
I think you probably covered everything quite quickly. Nice one. But yeah, just to mirror it really. I mean, on mobile, you're fighting for people's attention. So any kind of friction that you add to the support experience, like opening the email system and adding that information, it might just be too much and could lead to churn. So yeah, it's been great in terms of having that conversational flow from the player side, and then from our side, having all the automated information gathered from from device information to player IDs to spend levels to where they are in the game. That's allowed us to sort of segment and prioritize in a similar way that Natalie's mentioned. So yeah, it's really helped us to sort of define the workflow for the team as well. It's VIP first, spenders, maybe non-spenders, and then figure out where we should be concentrating our efforts.
Cool, good one. So Natalie, what would you say, what features do you use, and what feature is the most useful for you as a company?
There's so many of them, I'm afraid I'm going to be talking a lot more than I should. Well, I guess I've already mentioned the FAQs, which at this point would probably be our sort of first line of defense. And I usually tend to forget it when I'm thinking about all the things that I'm using with Helpshift, because this is not an active part of our support. This is the way for us to sort of passively help our players and to give them all the necessary tools for them to sort out their problems by themselves. So the only thing that it requires from us is that we always need to stay on top of the of the list of those questions that the players might be interested in. So when we have some new event coming out, or when we have some new game mechanic or a new character or anything else new in the game, this just means that we need to update all of those FAQ articles to think ahead about what the problems potentially might happen to our players. And those FAQ articles must always, all times, be relevant. The information must be factual. The information must be straight to the point, because nobody really likes to read, the whole huge amounts of text, especially on their phones. So yeah, and with that, if we happen to anticipate the problems that the players might have, and we, put together a very small, concise, neat instruction on how to deal with this problem, and we make it easy for the player to find this instruction using keywords, or using a search bar for the player to type their problem and immediately get the article that they need. So this deflects us, more than 90% of the questions, of the problems that could potentially become reports, that could potentially become tickets, but they don't, because the players just help themselves, because the players know where to find this information. And yeah, this is really sort of the cornerstone of what our support is, of what we could do to help, decrease the amount of tickets that we receive. But then after that, of course, there's bots, and the bots would be the second line of defense for us. And there's different types of bots that we are using: the API bots, the answer bot, the customized bots. So the bots really help us to deal with the requests and issues that have become tickets at this point. And they help us to give the players answers immediately with the information that might help them to deal with their issue. And if not, the bots just collect all the necessary information, and then our agents can use this information to help the players solve their issues. After that, there is, of course, the analytics, the data that we receive from the players and the data that we receive from the players and agents interactions. And well, without the analytics, without looking at this data, we couldn't really measure the sort of the performance, the level of performance of our agents. So it really helps us to monitor, you know, the KPIs of our agents and of our teams. How many tickets do we receive daily and weekly and monthly? What are the CSAT and other things? Also, of course, collecting players' feedback is very important. We use it to give this, you know, this feedback to our developers, and it's really helpful in terms of deciding if the developers want to add something to the next update of the game, to change, to give the game some tweaks, to fine-tune it so that the players are more happy with it. I guess I could talk more about bots.
Let's hold that for best practice.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, Matt, over to you.
Anything to add?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing else on top of that would be the issue tagging, which is really useful. Obviously, you can use the bots to automate that, but also, you know, we want agents to manually do that, and it sort of helps split us out into different issue types into separate queues. Like, for example, with lost progress, we were using and missing purchases, using bots to categorize those and then gather information from the player that we might need, like receipt information or usernames or user IDs from various accounts, and then organizing that into separate queues for like a subject matter expert to jump in and get those sort of more complicated queries resolved there. Hopefully in the future, you might want to use those like an API to get that organized. At the moment, there probably isn't enough volume around that to justify the development work to create the API, but that's something we probably want to do in the future. And obviously, once we've got the issue trends from the tags, that helps us identify where problem areas are in our live builds. And reply easy to let players know, and also maintain a list with sort of numbers for the development team, so that help them prioritize any issues that are arising. So we have a list of sort of top 10 issues and the numbers of which are coming through for each product, and top 5 feedback items, and then these get discussed in weekly live ops meetings with our gaming community teams.
Cool, thank you. So one more, and then I will open it up. And I think we've got some questions coming through, which I'll ask Sarah to read out from the audience. So one last question before we go on to that, and then I've got, I guess, some more specific questions if we've got time to go into those. So Natalie, how do your agents work with the tools? Any comments and feedback on that?
Yeah, of course. Well, their primary, you know, task would be to handle the issues, to engage with the players, to help them solve any potential problems that they have in the games, but also tagging the issues, tagging the problems, to help us collect the data about the numbers of how many different specific issues that are about this specific problem or about that specific problem that we might receive. And of course, when dealing with some critical issues, with dealing with some massive issues in the game, agents would really need some help. And this is, of course, where the bots come into play. And for example, I could, recently we had one of the issues in our games when we had new tickets just, you know, just pulling up in our inbox by the second, and we have more than, I think, 1,000 tickets in an hour. So the agents were overwhelmed by this amount of workload, and to help them out, we had to create some specific bots to help to deal with this huge spike of incoming tickets. And this was a very easy thing to do for us because, well, I guess in the next part of this roadshow, we'll be talking more about how it's easy to create some bots. But for the agents, it was really, really, relieving to help them deal with this huge amount of tickets, so they are becoming less stressed. So this bot just takes a lot of issues, and it gives out the information to the players that otherwise the agents would have to give them by hand. And for the agents, it's also easy to follow the tickets that they are working with in their personal inboxes using the smart views, using the tagging system, using the search bar that they can always find anything that they need to when they're working on some complex cases, or when they're dealing with some unknown issues. The only thing that, not the only, but the first thing that they could do is they just search the other issues that have been worked on before. So it might help them to find a solution for some unknown case when other agents already have been working on it before, and they have left some notes, or they just simply read through the discussions of other agents with the players with similar problems. So yeah, that's probably it.
Matt, anything to add on that?
Yeah, sure. So to go back to the conversational flow, it's especially convenient. So it kind of removes some of the formality of email. So it's more of a sort of a text message conversation rather than a formal backwards and forwards like letter writing. So that fits nicely with a more relaxed tone when speaking with people. So that's nice. We use quick replies quite a lot, and that's been extremely helpful to deal with spikes in traffic and in general when completing a specific task to help a player. So it's completed, boom, quick reply. It's literally backslash and type it in and done. So yeah, that's good. We've also used campaigns as well quite a bit. That's had a proven impact on revenue and engagement. To promote offers and in-game events. So much so we've got sort of specific community team members to sort of craft those and sort out artwork for them and messaging and everything.
Good. Thanks for that. I do have some more questions for you, but as we're coming up, and I will get on to them, I want to open it up a little bit to the audience and bring them in. Sarah, I think there's been a few that's been raised in chat. Do you want to read them out, or would you prefer the audience to ask the questions themselves?
Sure, I can read them out. So we had one, I would love to hear about their journey with deploying automations and bots. How long did it take? What resources were involved? Do they have a process that constantly reviews what else could we automate?
Who's going to take that one first? I'll tell you what, let's switch it around. Let's have Matthew first.
Okay, so bot implementation. I think when we first started looking at them, we were like a little bit like, where's the entry point sort of thing. But Matt Potts, he really helped us out and helped us define a load of workflows around that. So for the two initial ones we did for our trial. So yeah, I mean, with one of our games, it was pretty awesome. It worked with F1. So we had a bunch of issues which we could use to train the AI with. When we tried to move that to top drives, which had less, wasn't quite so successful. But that's a case of just waiting until we've kind of got enough data to train the AI so it recognises it correctly. But once you're actually in there, it's relatively straightforward to just create the bot and the flow for the bot. It's just a case of like a logical flowchart really, and identifying what all the outcomes for an issue type, and what could be automated and what can be, and what needs a human interaction to make it happen.
Okay. Natalie, your experience on your journey of deploying automation and bots?
Well, I can say that it was also relatively easy for us to start, because I think we just started working the bots last year, somewhere around August, and I was there from the start, and I was sort of leading this introduction of these automations to our support system. And for us, I think the most the most effort that we had to put into it is to actually to write some specific text for the bots to because they're really different from what we are using with the agents, and we want the players to be aware that they are talking to a bot. We want the players to have this sort of we don't really want them to be negative towards this bot, because we understand that with the players there is a lot of expectations from talking to some real people, and a lot of players, they're not really happy when they have to deal with the bots, so we have to work around it. But after you start building the bots, after you create the first of them, I think what goes next is relatively easy, because you're just building on it, you're just expanding on it, you translate your bots to different languages, you introduce your bots to other projects that you might have, and you keep looking at the stats, keep looking at the CSAT of the bots, for example. You continue to fine tune the texts and the steps to make it more natural, to see what works and what doesn't work for the players. And from this point, you can go further to implement some other types of bots, not just custom bots, but the answer bot, for example, and the API bots that we are currently using too. And it really helps you see those places where automation can just be enough for the players to help them solve their issues. There is no need for the agent to participate in this conversation, because everything that the player needs, they can have with the bot.
Okay. Couple of, I think a lot of the questions has been on this journey of bots. So one of the things that I'm reading on the chat and the audience has raised is what ratio of issues are now processed by bots, sort of percentage are resolved by bots?
For us, for example, I would say it's about, it depends on the game, of course, but it is in range between 50 to sort of maybe 65% of all the tickets that we receive. So this amount of tickets, 50 to 65%, would be totally resolved by the bots. So those are the types of tickets when the player doesn't have any interaction with an agent, and the bot handles the ticket from the start to finish.
Cool. And Matt, do you have any?
I think I don't have a definitive number. I mean, because we do a lot of, we haven't used bots to their full potential yet, but in terms of like the answer bot, I think we were looking at 5%. That was literally just by flicking a switch, which was pretty amazing. And then with the lost progress and missing purchase bots we've used, I think it was looking, I think it was about 20% on those as well.
Cool. So it depends. And I think the other one is, I think it's probably a little bit of the first question, but what were the challenges? Tell us what the challenges were that you faced as you went down this road. And I know you've touched on them a little bit, but I think people want to know, what the gotchas. So Matt, go on then, as you've unmuted first.
Yeah. So the challenges, I think it's more about identifying the bot flow really, and just having an idea about what all the eventualities are there, and as Natalie said, probably the refining of those processes as you go through. I think it does the bot system. Well, to use the AI recognition, it does need a lot of issue types to sort of accurately do that, and that can be a bit of a pain to sort out. But once you've resolved that, it works correctly. So yeah, just making sure you've correctly categorized your problem, your issues, and you've thought of everything for the flow, and that you go back and that you're checking in Power BI analytics that it's doing what it's meant to be doing, and that you've got a good sort of success rate on that.
Good. Natalie, just a quick one, and then I'll go back to.
Yeah, I would also support that. I think narrowing down the list of problems that you have, potential problems that you might have, to sort of define what you would really like to put in the bot, and then from that working on the workflow for the bot, to asking the right question, and to know which types of issues should then go to the agents, and which type of issues could just be resolved by the bots.
Okay, cool, good. Thank you for that. There are more, and we will take these questions and fire them over post-event to both Natalie and Matt, and present you with a follow-up on this. So thanks for keep asking your questions as we go through. But I'll go back to a couple of final questions, as we've got just under 5-10 minutes left. So this one's just to you, Natalie. You use AppFollow, which I guess is a more platform-driven review product for iOS and Android platforms, and you use it in integration with Helpshift. What are the benefits you're seeing from these two products working together?
Well, first of all, it was very important to us to work with the reviews that we get from the players on both on App Store and Google Play Store. So this was always a part of our workload. This was always sort of some part of the focus that we have on interacting with the players, on collecting their feedback on as many platforms as possible. So it was important for us to find an easy way to do that, and an easy way to integrate working with the reviews with working with tickets, because we have agents working on both of that. And the same agents that work on tickets, and those are the agents that reply to the reviews and try to help the players, across multiple platforms and across multiple channels. So for us, it was important for us to give the agents the opportunity to work on both of these sort of channels in the same place. So we could integrate the reviews into the Helpshift system, so that the agents, they didn't have to go to another tab, to another window, to another platform to be able to work on reviews. So nowadays it's easy for them. They can switch between working with tickets and switch between working on reviews. They get notifications when they have a new review that needs to be answered. And this really helps us improve their productivity. Everything is very easy to work on. It's all in one place. It's very comfortable to manage the workload. And it also helps us as managers to measure their productivity, because the numbers of the reviews that they answer, they are reflected in their weekly statistics. We see them as outbound interactions, and we can group everything together with the inbound issues that agents are working on, to make sure that they are not overloaded or overwhelmed, and we get a very clear picture of what is their the number of their outbound interactions in this week or this month. Is it increasing or is it decreasing? Is it up to our expectations or not?
Okay.
Yep.
Good, thank you. One of the key poll results was the number of resources and how quickly automations can be deployed as a barrier to putting automations into the customer support arena. So what I want to ask you is, how quickly did it take you to deploy Helpshift and observe the results? And can you take me through that journey of implementation? And I know you both had to look at colleagues for help here, because I think they were both deployed a little bit before you joined the companies. So.
Yeah, I've made some inquiries about that, because at that moment I was an agent, so I didn't get the full picture of what it was, behind just the simple process of working with Helpshift. And we started working with Helpshift 4 years ago, 2016. And I think from what I heard, it was kind of a fast implementation because I think we signed the contract somewhere around August, and around October we already started working with the new issues. And I remember that distinctly because of that time, one of our games was just released. It was Gardenscapes, and this was the first game that I was fully supporting. So it sort of coincided with the start of working with Helpshift. It was a completely new experience for me and completely new experience for the whole team for the new game. And it really helped us, because you can imagine at the beginning of the new game, at the start, there is a lot of unknown ground to cover. There is a lot of new issues. There is a lot of problems that needs fixing. So for us, we didn't really have time to go there slowly, to go there, month by month, slowly introducing it to all players. We had to start working with it, and we had to use it to our benefit, to be able to quickly solve the increasing amount of issues. So it was easy to introduce, and it was easy to use too. As mentioned before, the tagging system, the system of categorization of players, the amount of statistics that is available to us just at your fingertips. And with the players, we really saw the differences between the previous system and this one. It really benefited us in terms of how we could quickly react to what the players sent to us, and how easy for the players also it was to use this new system. And we immediately started using automations, which were to issue some auto replies to the players, for example. And with that auto replies, we could also manage when we want the issue to be closed, for example, and when we want to, either we want the players to be able to reopen the issue or not. So it depends on what are we looking into? Do we want to have continuous dialogue with the game, with the player over a long period of time, or we want them to send us a new report, for example, because we really need to receive some new data from their game. So yeah, we really saw a lot of changes with moving on to Helpshift, and it wasn't really as difficult, time consuming, or that effort consuming, I would say, to launch it, to start working with Helpshift, surprisingly.
Good. Matthew?
Hey, it all went very smoothly, apparently. No issues in terms of implementing the SDK. I think it was just a case of sticking it in there, organising some smart views, getting some FAQs and iterating on those, and then going from there. I mean, that was when back in 2014, so I wasn't actually at the company then, so it was a bit difficult to find that information. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward, I think, and like results were pretty quick as well. I mean, in terms of deflection with the FAQs, like went straight to 90% of all issues. So well, which is amazing. Yeah, we weren't using the automations around that time, were more around auto replies for certain things. When we launched Hot Wheels, actually, there was a big, we weren't using AI at the time, or AI wasn't a thing, but we just used some automations to deflect a lot of the non-spender traffic which we were seeing, and sort of re-guide people back to FAQs, kind of like a hacked bot, really. But yeah, that's sort of still doing its job, and that's been good.
I'm conscious of time, so I'm gonna slightly wrap up, but I want to get a couple more things out of you, and then I will finish. So we'll get coffee, and we'll start a few minutes later on to the next sessions. But can you tell us what the key achievements and metrics that you've got from using the platform, and give us your top 3 recommendations? I've combined 2 questions there, so a little bit of what's it meant for you, what you've driven from that, so people can understand how it's the value that the platform's given you, and then your top 3 recommendations. So I'll go to Natalie first.
Okay, to put it short, our biggest achievements would be the decrease of the first time response. And before that, it used to be days, maybe 1 day or a little bit more than that, but nowadays it's just hours, thanks to the bots. Also, the deflection rate has really increased with the FAQ system and answer bot. Our deflection rate is about 90% now. So 90% of the requests or issues that could potentially become tickets are now just handled by the players themselves. And as I mentioned before, more than 50% of all incoming tickets are being resolved by the bots now, which is a very large number for us, and it really helps us to keep our team small, make it more cost efficient, and in the future potentially help us to to be able to support even larger amounts of players. And yeah, languages. Bots can reply to the player even in the languages that you don't have any agent speaking. In terms of recommendations, I guess I would just reiterate myself, then say that FAQs would be the #1 thing that you really want to implement first, because it saves you a lot of effort, and it really saves you a lot of money on adding some additional people to the team. After the FAQs, the first thing to introduce to your support system would probably be the answer bot, because this is kind of an extension of your FAQ articles. This is the bot that works on itself, and that just helps your players to find the right answer to their question if they are interested in looking at it by themselves. And I guess my final recommendation would be just to start small, start using maybe one bot for one specific issue or for one category of players, and then see what works, see how it works. And then from that, you can just build on, and you can continue using it to your own benefit, which is very beneficial.
Thank you. Matt, same to you.
Hey, yeah, so again, deflection rate, already mentioned it. I think it's, some periods it's gone up to like 99%. So that's been pretty amazing. CSAT as well, it does vary across our titles, but we keep an average of about 80%. With top drives, we're up to about 90, and Rebel Racing as well. Sort of, big titles there. If you look at sort of contact rate, it varies a lot between our titles, but with Rebel Racing, we've got, it's really, really good deflection there. First response times, I think we've reduced them down from like, our goal has always been to be below 24 hours, and that's down to about 15 there. Sometimes less, so that's greatly improved the time to resolve as well. Yeah, so stats wise, you can see that the main things that have improved dramatically there. In terms of recommendations, it's a very scalable solution. We aren't even using some of the features fully yet. So, I mean, get development teams on board to implement the SDK and plan what customer data you want to send along with the query, sort of setting up custom issue fields, that sort of thing, to help provide targeted support. And when you decide to use campaigns, or if you do, you can proactively message segments to, need to ask for reviews from like guys who are playing the game for a long time, or let them know about issues, or just around offers and events that you're running in the game to push people to those. I mean, we've seen like 90% uptick when we started doing that, which was pretty amazing. So plan how you want to help your customers self-serve and deflect using the FAQ system. It's only as good as you make it. So include some images and video in the FAQ system, helps provide context for any text that's there as well. Using bots really takes that to the next stage once you start seeing results. And the Power BI reporting makes it plain to see where your FAQs and bots are making the biggest wins, and where they might be underperforming. there are many ways you can deploy Helpshift. It's pretty scalable, so I'll probably try to fit your initial deployment to your business objectives. For us, when we started with casual games, the goal was deflection. As we've grown into live ops titles with millions of players, that's really helped, but also using campaigns to drive players towards the most engaging aspects has, like I said, really sort of driven revenue as well.
Thank you both. I want to take one more minute of your time before we hit the coffee break and break and come back into our breakout sessions, and that's because I mentioned at the start the holidays we got, and my daughter was affected by it, and she's 20. I don't know what generation that is now, Generation X, Y, or Z. I've got no idea, and she has tried desperately to get her money back. She's desperate at the moment, and we're trying to help her. We've gone back to old days of emailing the CEO of the bloody company, all sorts. And she'll never use that company again. She's told us that. She said, this is not, I'll go on holiday using a different company. Now, whether that changes in the future because she's 20 or whatever. But this is all about actually, support is about some good things when you get it right. But, sometimes you have to tell them, things are broken, things are bad. But you still need to engage with your players, your customers, your consumers. And I think this is where Helpshift really can help with that automations and so forth. And I want to end on a positive that Hutch, you told us about a player experience that you had and the feedback that he gave you. So just a last minute, then I'll say thank you to both of you and we'll get on to coffee.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it mainly resolves around, basically it's fairly common actually, and it reflects as well with Natalie's story about AppFollow, in that initially a player will put in a fairly low star review maybe on the App Store, and then you can pick it up and respond to that, and then so for an example with this one guy, he lost his account or needed it transferred to another device, so it's just a story about getting that issue sorted and getting it sorted quickly, so that they were unable to play a multiplayer event with a relative, and then compete against each other in that leaderboard. And so obviously their playtime was fairly seamless, and we managed to get that solved quickly. But then obviously that comes back to them updating their review from a 3-star to a 5-star, and then getting a really nice shout out to the support agent who actually dealt with it as well, saying thumbs up to Hutch and specifically that player, that agent, which was nice. And obviously that gets seen by CEOs and leadership in the company, so that reflects really well on us, and obviously it's on our storefront as well. So it's
good. And so that was it. And I think he was playing his dad, wasn't it? And his dad had overtaken him on the leaderboard, and it was a story that he got really irate because he needed to switch his game because he was trying to beat his dad, and I quite like that story. So we are 10 minutes over. We apologise for that. I think it was great feedback and great questions. So let's go back to, and I'd like to say thank you to both of you for taking the time to share your experiences today.